person tonight. This is a big night in the history of our county as we swear in those who have been elected by the voters of this county to represent them for another term on this Board of County Commissioners. For those of you who are watching and participating in this meeting from home, we always welcome you, and while we don't see you, but we feel your presence, and we know that we serve all the people of Randolph County. And so we're glad for your participation and having enough interest to view the proceedings of this county commissioners meeting tonight by whatever way you choose and whatever ways are available for you. This is our December meeting. It is the last official board meeting, our monthly board meetings for 2020. And we do have another public hearing next week for another zoning issue, but this is our regular monthly meeting, and trust all of you had as enjoyable Thanksgiving as possible in whatever way you chose to do that. And we're approaching the Christmas season and all that goes with that, and we continue to be concerned about those that are around us and even affected members of this board. So we're going to open tonight with prayer and an invocation. We need prayer. I do want to say at this time, since our last board meeting, Commissioner Haywood has lost her father, and some of you already know that Commissioner Kidd today lost his mother. So we certainly grieve with them and pray for them and the loss of their family members. And those of us that have experienced that, there's only one mom and only one dad in our life. So we want to remember them as well. Hope our dad's memorial service was yesterday in Reedsville, and Kenny has yet to deal with that in his family. So with that, and for all the many needs that we have as a county, we are going to go to prayer. That has been the practice of this board since I've been the chairman. We've never stopped. And we've been fortunate to not be tested on that matter. But we're grateful for the privilege of prayer. And for that, Reverend Boyd Byerly from the Sunset Avenue Church of God is here to do our invocation tonight. Reverend Byerly, we thank you for participating in this process, and we ask you to do that. And you please stand, and following the invocation, we'll have our Pledge of Allegiance.
Just take a point of privilege just to say to all of the commissioners and to all the Randolph County staff, thank you so much for all you do for this county. Each Thursday morning, there's a group of about 20 pastors that gather in this city to pray, and we lift you up and pray for you. We can't do your job, but we have a job to do, and we want you to know that we lift you up on a weekly basis. Let's pray. Father, we're grateful today for your incredible goodness and your incredible kindness. Lord, we're only here today because of your great mercy. If not for your mercy, we would be consumed. So we acknowledge in this room tonight that you and you alone have granted to us life and the ability to serve. Lord, we hear in your word that happy and blessed are the people whose God is the Lord. May this be true of Randolph County. May we be a county that understands that our blessings always proceed from you. Lord, thank you for Randolph County. You built it. You called it into being. It has purpose. It has destiny. There are plans yet to be fulfilled in this county. And we boldly ask you in the name of Jesus tonight, God, that you would come and you would do a work in this county, that we would fulfill your purpose. Lord, we pray for those who have lost people in this last season, especially tonight for Kenny Kidd and Hope Haywood. Lord, we ask you for your incredible grace, and thank you for the power and the comfort of the Holy Spirit over them even this night. And God, we thank you for the incredible recovery rate that's in our county right now. Lord, if not for your mercy, this would not be true. And so we acknowledge you, but we also acknowledge the incredible healthcare workers among us and those, oh Lord, that are serving us in this season, and we thank you for them. And we give you praise, because if not for that, Lord, we would be consumed. Now we ask you, oh God, for this meeting tonight and for this remaining term that these people will serve. We ask you for wisdom, for insight, and knowledge. We ask that you grant it to them, Lord, as they seek your face. I thank you that you have wisdom to give them. And above all, may justice and righteousness rule in this room. And we give you the praise and the glory and the honor in Jesus' name. Amen.
Amen. Thank you, Reverend Barley. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. You may be seated. We do have special recognition tonight. Let's see, we might have to wait for that since we have exited the room. Okay, we're going to go to administering the oath of office. The Honorable Scott Etheridge, Judge Scott Etheridge, is here to take care of that procedure for us, for Commissioner McDowell and Commissioner Kidd, who have just been reelected to another 4-year term to serve on this board. And also Shane Whitaker is here for the Soil and Water Conservation Board. And Shane, will let you go first. So Scott, you come to the front. Is there any family member that is with you, Shane? Or? Okay.
You want to place your left hand on the Bible and raise your right. And if you will repeat after me. I state your name. I, Shane Whitaker, do solemnly swear that I will support the Constitution of the United States. So help me God. I state your name. I, Shane Whitaker, do further solemnly and sincerely swear that I will be faithful and bear true allegiance to the state of North Carolina and to the constitutional powers and authorities which are or may be established for the government thereof, and that I will endeavor to support, maintain, and defend the Constitution of the United States, not inconsistent with, Shane's the first one I ever messed up. Let me go back. Maintain and defend the Constitution of said state, not inconsistent with the Constitution of the United States, to the best of my knowledge and ability, so help me God. I state your name. Do further swear that I will well and truly execute the duties of Soil and Water Conservation District Supervisor of Randolph County, according to the best of my skill and ability, according to law, so help me God.
Who wants to go first? All right. Commissioner McDowell and family, if you want to come with them.
You want to jump out? Want me to go first? Pardon?
No, individual.
You want to speak first?
What?
You want a minute of personal privilege?
Oh, sure, certainly.
Before you do that, and I just want to take a moment of personal privilege to say that I'm swearing both Commissioner McDowell and Commissioner Kidd in, and it's such a great honor for me
right, we're going to shift groups now. So if you were here for the swearing in, we're going to have to ask you to leave so that we can bring in the others relative to our agenda tonight. I'm sorry, folks.
Love y'all. Thank you for being here. I like that.
Steve? Are you doing this recognition? Are you doing the recognition tonight? I don't see the sheriff. Pardon? But you're going to recognize Felicia Butler? Oh, okay. That's good.
Read what's
That's good. Yeah, that's good.
We got it.
Yeah, we got it. Okay. Thank all of you for rejoining us tonight, and we will continue with our agenda. First, we have some special recognition for a retiring officer with the Randolph County Sheriff's Department, and Felicia Butler, who's been here for 30 years. So Steve Myers is going to do the honors tonight. So Steve, would you come forward?
Mr. Chairman, Commissioners, Felicia.
Felicia, you want to come forward?
Felicia Lisa Butler grew up in Randolph County and graduated from Asheboro High School in 1987.
Steve, move a little closer to the mic, please.
She began her public service profession here in Randolph County in 1990 as a jailer working under former Sheriff Richard Hurley. She held that position for 2 years before being promoted to the rank of sergeant within the Randolph County Detention Center. She completed her basic law enforcement training at Randolph Community College in 1998. After receiving her law enforcement certification, she became a school resource officer for the Sheriff's Office and served in that division the remainder of her career. Lisa began her SRO career at Southwestern Randolph Middle School in 1998 before taking on the task of teaching care to the second graders in the year 2000. Lisa would hold that position for 8 years before moving on to serve at Randolph Community College, where she finished her career and retired from law enforcement on Friday, October 30th, 2020, with 30 years of service. During her years in law enforcement, Lisa would go on to obtain the rank of sergeant in 1992 and was promoted to the rank of lieutenant in 2009. In 2015, she earned her advanced law enforcement certificate, and in 2018, she would receive her school resource officer certification through the North Carolina Justice Academy. In 2019, Lisa would receive her 20-year SRO Service Award from the North Carolina Association of School Resource Officers. Lisa has often spoke of the time that she became an employee of the Randolph County Sheriff's Office as if it was predestined, because Lisa's mother, Rosa Butler, and former Sheriff Hurley served together on the board of a community-based program in the 1990s. They knew each other well. because Miss Butler cared dearly for her daughter's future, she escorted Lisa to her employment interview with former Sheriff Hurley. During the interview, Lisa did very little talking, but Miss Butler had a lot to say and ended the interview with, "Sheriff, that's enough talking. My daughter needs a job." Over the past few weeks, Lisa has expressed to many her sincere gratitude for the opportunity to serve the citizens of Randolph County for the past 30 years. In her retirement, she intends to spend more time with her family and friends and to travel the country. Lisa, congratulations.
I'd like to take this opportunity, Lisa, because we started off together back in 90. It is a pleasure to see that you walked and made it to 30 years. Congratulations and enjoy yourself.
Lisa, would you come here, please? What you get for that 30 years is a clock. No, seriously, you get a lot of thanks and congratulations on your service to the citizens of this county, and especially in the public schools of this county. A lot goes on there. A lot of folks don't know all that goes on, and that work is most appreciated, and sorry, but it's necessary, and we thank you for being there. This is in grateful appreciation to Felicia D. Butler in recognition of 30 years of service, December the 7th, 2020, for the Randolph County Board of Commissioners. God bless you, and I hope you're the very best in your retirement. Thank you. All right, it is the time for on our agenda and the time of year following elections and re-election of our two current board members that we reorganize our board for the next year. We do this each year, not just after an election. As we face each year, this is a process that we go through. The chair and the vice chair are nominated and voted on separately. The rest of them, after we take care of those two, I'm going to ask if any commissioner wishes to change a board assignment, and maybe that we appoint or we adopt the remaining of these positions as presented or as they are currently staffed. So, Hal, are you going to do this? Or
I'm not sure what you are, Hal. Mr. Presiding Officer, how about that? I move we nominate Darrell Fry for chairman.
second.
Aye.
Thank you. And for office of vice chairman, I would like to nominate David Allen to continue to serve as vice chairman of this board.
Second that.
Have a second. Those in favor will say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. So, David, thank you for your service. And I do want to say, as we start a new year, we have been experiencing a year like we've never had before, as we've gone through a process here tonight to be able to conduct the business of the county and limiting the number of folks that can be here in person to observe and participate in the governance of Randolph County. And with the way things are going now, we don't know what the next year is going to hold. They talk about a vaccine and who will be eligible for that, who the priorities, who will get vaccines first. And this board will have to deal with those issues also as we go forward. And we'll have more discussion about that in our agenda tonight. We're still dealing with issues at our hospital. When we thought that that process was well underway and close to being final, we've had some hiccups even in the last week relative to that process and the purchase by American Health Systems. So those issues continue. The issues of job and economic development for our county continues to be an issue. And as we work, and I think that those two things go together, having the certainty of a hospital in our county is necessary for economic development. Those two things go hand in hand. And one leads to the other, but especially the hospital will have to help us in our economic development efforts. So, and a number of other issues that always come up, surprises along the way. I'm proud to serve with this board. I think the citizens of Randolph County have done a good job in electing members to this board, and it's an honor for me to serve with them. And it's an honor for me to serve each one of you and all that might be watching this on Facebook or YouTube tonight. It's not something I take lightly, and I'm humbled by the support that the citizens of this county have given, and I think these fellow commissioners would say the same thing for themselves. And we thank you for your prayers, and as we endeavor to serve you and take care of business in the very best way that we can, and to discuss and value the issues that affect your life and ours. I have family that lives in this county, and I have grandchildren in our public schools, and I have daughters that teach in the public schools of Randolph County. And what we do is important, and the agencies that serve you every day. And you will hear more about that as we go through our agenda tonight. But having emergency services, having a health department that's available, that can be staffed. We don't want to run out of people that can drive an ambulance that might have to come to your home one night. And those are issues that we have to deal with. We didn't ask for them, but they're ours, and we will endeavor to take care of that business to the best we can and in protection of your health and safety every day that we go about this job. So with that, any other commissioner, we're going to proceed with the agenda tonight. Yeah, I'm all of these other appointments, our board did not change in its makeup, and we all serve on various committees and our clerks. So if it's okay with the board, if we have a motion to adopt the remainder of the organization as it currently exists.
I'll make that motion.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Motion and a second. Any commissioner feel differently? Those in favor will say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. And thank all of you again for your service to all of these committees. Public comment period. Do we have those that have signed up? Okay. We don't have anyone signed up for public comment tonight. All right. Next is our consent agenda. I would want to make item D, which is appointments to the Planning and Zoning Board. That Larry Cable is really John Cable.
Not Larry the Cable Guy.
Not Larry the Cable Guy. That's right. All right. Any other changes or an issue on the consent agenda?
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to ask that item number K be pulled off for just a brief discussion.
Item K is the appointment of Alan Ferguson to the Randolph County Board of Health.
Thank you.
Any other changes to the consent agenda? Is there a motion to adopt the consent agenda as amended?
Move we approve the consent agenda as amended.
Is there a second?
Second.
Those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. And it is approved. Item K is the appointment of Alan Ferguson. Commissioner Kidd.
Well, mostly my question about item K is a little bit twofold, but mostly kind of procedural, if you will. And I've discussed it with a couple folks. So I just wanted to kind of get some clarification and figure out exactly what we're doing here. I was looking at typically or customarily about 2 months out before appointments, and this is for the public as much as it is for our discussion and clarification for me. About 2 months, if you will, before appointments come up, for us to consider. Just for example, we just approved a whole bunch of them as well as this one. We see on the end of our agenda, and even if you look at the one that's published publicly, a list of those people that are rolling up, whatever. And when I look back at October, and when I saw October, I know we just reappointed Commissioner Haywood, and Marty Trotter and Mary Ann Evans were up for the Public Health Board seats that were coming up. And so, that's what I was looking at. And then I was not aware of, I guess it was Miss Richardson from the Liberty area she resigned or her position came available? She served 9 years, so that one came up. Now, I didn't see any notice of that one coming up. I don't know if any other commissioner did.
Fall on that. I'm on public health. I'm on the public
and-
health board, and I should have made sure that that was done. So I accept full responsibility for that.
All right, and so, okay,
Please
well,
excuse me.
so thank you. So anyway, and then but I did get a wonderful explanation, that, as is customary for our board, and I think the chairman and vice chairman, since they've served together for a while, can maybe speak to this a little more. Typically on these boards, all of them, not just public health board, we kind of try to divide that, and you can help me out here, so that it's geographically balanced around the county. That every commissioner, if you will, has an opportunity for someone who is in their district to be on various boards all over. And that's very customary. And so that Ms. Richardson, since that position became available, then we would reach out to, because she's from the Liberty area. Then what happened after that? We reached out to
me on nominations or who might like to serve. And being from the Liberty area, that's the person that I asked. I had 2 or 3 people and talked to some folks and thought it over. And Alan is a attorney. He's served on the Strategic Planning Committee. He's
I'm not asking for his credentials, but it was your nomination.
Yeah, and that's traditionally how it's
which
been
is
done.
customary.
We do the same thing with things like fire departments, tax rates for fire departments. If it's in your district, you kind of
make the
lead
call,
for
yeah,
that.
yeah. And I agree.
And to have these boards, sometimes it's hard to find enough people to serve on these boards.
Yeah, I agree.
But this typically, I think, been left up to the commissioner in that particular area to seek nominations and seek people to serve on these boards.
Okay, I just wanted some clarification, because that one kind of came, I assumed it was one of Mary Ann or Marty, and I knew we were going to reappoint Commissioner Haywood, and wasn't, and I was just trying to figure out whose it was, and Commissioner Haywood let me know that that was probably your call on that one. So anyhow, I just wanted to kind of get some, for everybody else and for myself, of where exactly that came from. And I know I talked with the county manager about this, and I think we're going to kind of do a little bit of changing in the way that we make us aware of who's coming up for a position, maybe a little bit sooner than that if we know that, so that we can all, kind of, and even if it is from a certain area, we certainly can have some input on that.
Oh, yeah, certainly.
So anyway, and just to point out, because it had been pointed out to me by a couple different folks about the diversity on boards, and this is just a kind of a FYI or whatever, and I've got a spreadsheet here I ran. This particular board is a little wonky, for lack of a better term, where that, a lot of the boards do have that diversity. And I know I've been called on for people from Ashburn, you people from Farmer, and you people from Archdale Trinity. This board actually has no one from my district whatsoever. Pardon? My district.
Mary Ann Evans does not live in Ashboro.
No, I have them all right here by their address, and none of them live in my district. Right, have to be a pharmacist or a vet or an MD or a nurse, yeah. But just Pardon? District 1 is mostly the city of Asheboro proper. Hold on one second. Let me go through them and answer those for you. Mary Ann Evans is in Commissioner Haywood's district. Who was the next one you asked me about? Commissioner McDowell's district. What was the next one you asked me about? Okay, I believe he is in Commissioner Fry's district.
Who was the name? What was the name?
Max Summy?
Yes.
Yep. Anyway, but I mean, that's fine. I was just throwing that out there, just on the diversity argument, if you will. But anyway, my just concern was just the procedure and diversity, if that's what we're going to say or whatever. So anyway, but we can proceed with a vote on item K.
And we can, and we'll look at the procedures and make sure that we want to continue. I still think that priority should be given to commissioners in their district and
Absolutely.
to keep balance. We did that with animal control. Each commissioner got an appointment from their district. Our planning and zoning board the same way, so that we
It
have.
helps most of them work in your district.
Well, Mr. Ferguson works in Greensboro, but anyway, go ahead with the vote.
Most of the others work in Asheboro.
All right, any other discussion on this matter?
I move that we approve the appointment of Alan Ferguson to the Health Board.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Any other discussion or questions? Those in favor will say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no.
No.
Motion passes 4-1. All right, that takes care of our consent agenda. New business, first is our COVID-19 County Alert System update. Hal Johnson.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. My wife says I look like a priest when I wear my mask around my neck, so that's why I'm doing that. I think 10 months ago, when the COVID pandemic hit in March 2020, none of us had any idea that it would still be here in December 2020. We kept hoping that would go away and that it would get better, but unfortunately, it continues to get worse. The latest numbers for COVID confirmed cases in Randolph County is 5,962. There have been 97 deaths as of today. The health director says that we've had 100 new cases a day for the last week in Randolph County. So what we hoped was the pandemic beginning to go away, to ease. We're actually confronting a second wave. And of course, there's lots of hope for that vaccine when that's available, but that's a whole nother issue coming up, and it will take some time for that to take any impact at all. The state called in counties, this was a month ago, where they met by Zoom with the chairman of the commissioners, the county managers, and the public health directors to talk about upcoming standards that were going to be placed on counties that were considered substantial community spread or critical community spread in North Carolina. Randolph County was at that time substantial community spread, which means that they have a percentage, if you're greater than 10% of those tested were positive, you are considered critical community spread. We were right at 10%, which 0.1% tenths of being a critical community spread. We haven't got the figures yet. I think we'll get those Wednesday. We anticipate that we will be what they call a fully red county critical community spread going on in Randolph County. And the state, because of that, there were, I believe, about 20-some counties at that time that were in the critical community spread and substantial community spread. They made recommendations to those counties. Well, some were recommendations and some are outright executive orders issued by the state. And it's called the County Alert System Report. Now, that report just went to counties, but I have shared that with all the municipalities in Randolph County, and I thought at the time that their League of Municipalities would be sharing that same information, but they had not. So those county alert system reports, I made sure that all our municipalities had a copy of that. And what it did was to go into detail with what recommendations the state considered and what actions needed to be taken for these counties that were in critical community spread. And by executive order, Governor Cooper mandated the use of face masks at all times outside the home. That's a result of the increased spread of the COVID virus in North Carolina. So we looked at certain things that were being recommended that counties do, and we were already doing some of those actions that the State Department of Health and Human Services recommended. I want to say that Randolph County, we had a business continuity plan in place prior to the pandemic, and what that did when we unexpectedly, we never imagined in all our deliberations that a pandemic would be the first thing that we would be dealing with. But when that came about in March and the state of emergency was declared, in Randolph County, we were able to put together a lot of resources very quick. And that has served us well over the past 9 or 10 months as this pandemic expanded and developed in our county. There are 4 areas that we immediately began to implement in Randolph County, and one that's recommended by the State Department of Health and Human Services. One is that a face mask covering the nose and the mouth when inside any public setting and when outdoors where social distancing is not possible be worn. And we define that as saying employees working alone in a walled office are not required to wear a face mask as long as they are alone. That's a substantial difference in our county operations. If others enter that walled office, a mask is to be worn. Cubicles or shared work areas do not provide isolation, and masks are required in these areas. Our county maintenance staff has already begun installing signs in all our workplaces. We have some very good banners that highlight the need to wear a face covering, wait 6 feet apart, and to wash your hands. We put those in all our facilities to increase awareness of this COVID pandemic and what they can do individually to try to protect themselves. Also, each county department, we have an extensive networking capability in Randolph County with all our 20-some different departments. And we've asked that those departments begin sharing with their networks information that they get on a regular basis from the state or the public health department about the COVID pandemic and actions that can be taken to protect those workers. The governor's office and the state also recommended it's a app to go on people's phones. It's called a Slow COVID North Carolina phone app. It's probably a pretty good application, but we did not require that. But we made our employees aware of the application that they can put on their phone to help identify those that they may have been around that have been exposed to COVID. Now, what does that mean for county government when we send an email or memo out and we say, make sure you're aware of what safe things need to be done, and how do we impact that? The county government that we deal with every single day, Randolph County, we're 900 employees in Randolph County government. 693 of those employees are what's classified as safety-sensitive employees. That means they provide direct patient-client care. They have care and custody of other citizens, our emergency services, our law enforcement. There are essential job functions that are performed every day by those 693 employees. If I ask anyone that number. I had to look that up myself. I wasn't familiar with how many safety-sensitive employees we actually have. But the county government, what has happened in the past 10 months is because of this pandemic, the role of the county government and the role of Randolph County to protect the public health and the safety, emergency services, social services in all these areas has been highlighted. Darrell mentioned the hospital. And that's a story that's not over yet, and we're grateful that there looks to be an ending to that moving on. But there were times in the previous months when we weren't sure if that hospital was going to survive or not. And do you know who would have to fill that gap? Randolph County, our county agencies. That's how important Randolph County government is. We've had, out of 900 employees, about 850 full-time and the rest are part-time. Out of those employees, we've had 515 potential COVID exposures. 515 of our employees have had potential exposures. I'm going to explain what that means a little bit more in just a second. 58 of those were positive COVID. That's of today. 184 were negative. 266 did not require testing. And we have 7 as of tonight that are still pending. That is with safeguards in place at our work in our work environment that we tried to put in place right when the state of emergency was declared. It's been a learning experience. We are all. Was there something in school that taught us how to handle a COVID pandemic? No, there was not. So we're learning as we go along what this COVID pandemic has done and what it's doing to our resources. 515 of our employees' potential COVID exposures. We're confronted with the challenge of maintaining, and I underline that word maintaining, sufficient staff levels to provide the critical services that are necessary, that our citizens require of the Randolph County government in a big way, the 693 safety-sensitive employees. How do we deal with that? When an employee goes out, when someone, the thing about the COVID is when you get the COVID virus, you're sick and you have that. But if you've been exposed to it, you're quarantined. And that means those that have been around that employee or if you're around someone who has COVID and you're back at the workforce, all those that have had contact with you are quarantined. Over time, what we're beginning to see, and we have to be aware and try to take steps to prevent that, is situations where entire shifts can be impacted through these quarantines on COVID when it's being brought into our workplace. Many of the employees did not contract COVID here on the workplace. They contracted COVID at other activities that they were involved in outside the workplace. They come back into the workplace, and it's like a vicious circle that we're experiencing. The COVID is there. They may have been around someone with COVID. They're put in quarantine. And we are close to, although thanks to the work of our departments and their supervisors, we've been very fortunate, but we're very close to at times not having the staff to provide these services. These are not staff positions that we can go, oh, we got some people out, so let's go hire some part-time people to come in to fill that for a few weeks. Can't do that. These are professional, trained positions that we're concerned about. What I've done, and of course, when you do things with the best intentions, sometimes they have a lot of concerns, but I wanted to outreach to our departments and to our staff and to restate from my position as the county manager that we expect our employees to follow safe guidelines. Follow the guidelines that Public Health Department is showing. The pandemic is expanding in our county. Our safety sensitive, our employees and our departments still have to maintain those services. So I sent an email to our department heads and asked them to share that with the employees. My goal was to strengthen awareness in our employees, and I think I've done that, by the way, pretty good now. But to strengthen awareness in our employees that what you do off the site is almost as equally as important with this COVID pandemic as what you do on the job, because you can come back and impact an entire shift of people. You can take out supervisors, you can take out whole buildings in some instance if because of the quarantine issues. I ask that our department heads renew their efforts to educate our employees about safe working environment under COVID. I've asked them if there's health information, and the health department and our human resources department are working together on this to make sure that our employees are up to date on this changing information that keeps coming by. I also said this to our employees. I wanted to make sure that safety-sensitive, essential workers, not the entire Randolph County staff at this point, but our safety-sensitive workers, as a means to strengthen their awareness, that they be required to sign what I'm calling an off-duty certification, that they will merely follow existing health rules. Nothing new, just follow the guidelines that have been set for safe operation in this pandemic. And we've sent that out to our employees and to our safety-sensitive employees, and asked them to do that. So, Mr. Chairman, I think that we're trying to be as proactive as we can, but I think that the goal of county government and this pandemic is showing that we're close to not being able to provide the services that we need, because we won't have the staff there to do it if we don't just encourage these employees to be smart. I had someone call me today and they said, well, what if I go to a party and there's 12 people there and none of them have masks on? Well, what's the answer to that? You don't go to a party with 12 people and no mask and then ask me, what are you supposed to do? You use your brain on that and don't go, or put some mask on, because you're coming back into our work environment. You're coming back into that work environment, and you're either going to be quarantined or you're going to impact other employees. And if I thought years ago that I would be standing here as your county manager talking about this situation that's coming before county government, I would never have believed that, because that's what we're facing right now. Now, I know there's a lot of probably people thinking, well, the shots are going to be ready soon. Well, I'll get these shots and this pandemic's going to be over. But we know that's not going to be the case. It's going to take a long time for the shots to reach everybody, and it's going to be, they've got it, certain people will get that first, and it may be later spring or summer before it's even available to everyone to take. And whether or not, as a county government, we require people to take shots, that's a whole nother story here. But all we're doing now is we're asking our safety-sensitive employees follow safe guidelines. And what you do off the job impacts our ability and your ability to carry out your job. So, Mr. Chairman, I ask, we have a crisis management team that meets generally twice a week. That's comprised of department heads and senior critical staff in this county. And we ask ourselves at the end of those meetings, are we doing all that we can to protect our workforce, number one, and number two, those citizens that they're sworn to also protect. And Mr. Chairman, that's just a very brief update of where we are at this time.
I noticed one of the officers that usually is on duty here during our commissioners meeting, I think he is under quarantine, or maybe he's out now, but for the fourth time, that has affected, I know, seriously, the situation at the courthouse. We've had the Estates Division was shut down for over a week.
Our IT department, I'm not going to mention the name, I guess that would be HIPAA, but our IT department that normally has more staff here tonight to do these broadcasts is down to just the director because of a quarantine of a potential COVID contact.
And that's coming into EMS, Sheriff's Department?
The biggest contacts so far is, and I don't have the exact, I have the numbers, but not here with me at the podium, is the sheriff's office, is the social services, emergency services, and public health. I think they fall in our maintenance department. They fall in that order there is to the departments who've had the highest level of COVID impact. And that reflects the citizens that they're having to deal with. That's part of their jobs as they interact with our community. I know there was some real, we've had some real positive things to occur with the Zoom meeting, I know, with our mayors, and that was real positive. I have had municipalities reach out and want to know more what the county's doing because they're concerned about this second wave.
Well, I think everybody knows that the county has not put into place any protocols or restrictions other than those imposed by the state.
That's right.
And our position has been to call on the folks to self-discipline, to take care of themselves, their families. I've been told, even today, by a couple of different sources, that the governor, this Wednesday, will go back to phase 1, which is the very thing we have tried to avoid. Nobody wants that. Our schools, getting kids back in school, parents want them back in school, teachers afraid to go in the classroom, and it's showing, test after test showing that the kids, this virtual learning is not working, and they're falling behind by the day. So it's not just Randolph County either. I mean, boy, Susan, 6,000 cases yesterday in North Carolina, wasn't it? Yeah, 6,000. So if we had 100, then 5,900 somewhere else, and people are reacting to that. People are making decisions that's going to be imposed on all of us.
I had an employee ask me, well, if we acknowledge that we need to follow these rules on the outside, are we going to get fired if we're in a situation which doesn't meet these? And the answer to that is no, unless it's recurring over and over and over again and you're impacting the workforce there. But this is to get the point home that we're at that point where our workforce is in danger and we need to take precautions.
Well, that was one of my questions is, what if we have an employee that says, I'm not comfortable signing this? What then?
We're not going to make an employee sign anything that they don't want to sign, but they know that.
Is there going to be increased peer pressure and, shaming and bullying going on to try to get people to do this? That's a very opinionated statement by me, but I don't mind making it because I feel like it's going on.
It is. I've gotten a call from somebody who wanted me to make sure that the person working beside them was following the protocols.
Right.
Well, I've gotten calls going, I can't believe our county government would ask me to sign this letter. I'm not comfortable signing it. Right. And what if I don't sign it? And what if I do sign it and I wind up, at my grandmother's house for Christmas and there's 12 people there and nobody's wearing a mask? Well, technically that's against some of Cooper's executive orders. So what happens?
Well,
somebody turned them in and their department head calls them and says,
we would ask our employees to use common sense in a situation like that.
I guess I didn't really know. Well, I wondered kind of if this would fall on our agenda. I was aware of the memo that went out. I was aware of the letter that went out that we asked every employee in the county to sign. Although I know you said safety sensitive and essential workers, but it went out to every department head.
Right.
Every department.
Yes, sir.
So I know some of those departments are questioning if they're safety essential or not. But I can't believe we're in this nanny state of the county as an employer is going to ask all of our employees to sign a letter saying, this is what I'm going to do when I'm off duty. It's none of my business what my workers do when I'm off duty. Well, I want them to be safe. I don't want any of them to get sick. I don't want anything bad to happen to any of their families. But I cannot believe in Randolph County we've come to the point where we're going to ask our employees to sign a letter that says, this is what I will and will not do off duty?
Well, when it's costing us so much money and it's stripping our workforce and it's impacting the services we provide for citizens, we have to do something.
So you're okay with taking people's kind of privileges and rights away because we're in a pandemic and you might run out of money?
Taking anybody's privileges and rights away.
Well, I absolutely do if you're telling me what I can do when I'm not working.
I think this is a situation where people need to understand that they have a responsibility to their employer in an essential service. Now, I don't know about everybody or who always, but if we run out of paramedics, we run out of sheriff's deputies, what are we going to do? I think that is the intent of it. I don't think this is a legal document that you're going, but it's to convey the intent that this is a serious situation, because a lot of folks, I think in other professions, not just in the medical profession, they get home, they forget everything that they need to be doing, and they do things that are not in the best interest of their coworkers when they come back to work. And because the county depends on these people to do their jobs, they are, I don't want to use the word essential because that has a connotation, but they are important, and we can't afford to lose those folks. And they need to understand that they are important, and they need
To be careful
to be careful.
and safe.
Exactly. And that's a reminder to do that. Now, I don't know the legal implications, Amy and Ben, as far as signing something like that.
Well, I got a couple questions for Ben, but anyway, go ahead. Go ahead. I just can't believe I'll pick on somebody. I know it's not polite to point, but that's a grown man back there that works for this county. I think his supervisor can stress to him, you need to be careful at home because we really need you. And the officer that's not here because he's usually working in the courthouse, he was exposed at work, not at some frat party somewhere. So, that's not a very good example. And he's been exposed at work several times, and because of our protocol, which I think is reasonable that we have a protocol, that he not come back and re-expose himself if he may have COVID. But I can't believe we're telling grown men and women what they can do at their grandma's house.
In our Monday morning meetings, it was brought up that in one particular department that is in direct contact with COVID patients, that's not, they were being careful at work. They did not contract it there, but they were contracted on their own time in a very sensitive situation where we can't afford to lose those folks.
Apparently we don't get a voice in this. I mean, this board's not going to vote on this policy, I guess.
We didn't make the policy. No.
I mean, who made the policy?
I did. I did.
I mean, under
That
whose
came from
advice?
me. That came from me.
Under whose advice?
Whose advice?
I mean,
My own opinion. Judgment.
I just, I think, we should vote on it, but, I will never tell any of our county employees what they can do off the clock, ever. That's ridiculous. And let me just ask Mr. Morgan, our board attorney, I mean, can you ask an employer to sign this addition to their contract here? I mean, how does that work?
No.
Employee, excuse me.
So I'm glad to hear Mr. Johnson say that, it's not the county's position that somebody that doesn't sign this is going to be terminated. I understand both sides of the argument very well. I understand the positions and why we're doing that. What I hear from Mr. Allen, this is my legal opinion. This is different than a flyer or something that's going in your envelope with your paycheck, or something that's in the break room that is a poster that says a reminder to be careful. This appears to me, when you have someone sign it, it looks similar to something that would be a non-compete, that you would have someone sign. I don't think it's unreasonable for people who look at this, when they sign it, to think that if they don't follow these things, that they could be terminated. I wouldn't be surprised if employees thought that. I haven't spoken to anybody about this. Nobody's called me. No employees have reached out. I've heard tonight that I think that this has already occurred, is my understanding. And so no employees have reached out to me, but that's what it looks like to me. I can see employees looking at this and thinking, hey, if I don't sign this, then my employment would not be continued. Now, I'm not an expert in employment law, but I can also tell you that if you are currently an employee and you're already employed and you're asked to provide something else, that you need to get something else in return for that in the form of additional payment or some other compensation. So that's...
I went through that one time for a group of salesmen to put non-compete, and
After they were employed.
it would not work. There has to be a reason, an inducement.
Right. So what I hear is that this is
I think
more...
that the point is, the message is okay, but the method is not.
Well, I think the message is, and I'm glad to hear that we're not terminating people for not signing. I think that could possibly be an issue.
We can't afford to.
Right. Right.
But, just I have no problem in whatever extreme way stressing to people how careful they need to be. But, as far as a policy to ask employees to sign that, that's what I'm asking about. You kind of clarified it a little bit, but.
I've said all I think I...
It sounds like the answer is no.
Yeah, which is, at first glance, I'm certainly not nearly as smart as Mr. Morgan, but I was appalled that we would throw something out there like this. One, you're asking this guy that I just talked about that I want to be healthy to sign a moving target. You're signing up for every regulation that public health here or Cooper or Cohen are going to throw out. Well, what if those rules change you talked about on Tuesday? Then, he's already signed a document that the rules just changed. And what if it changes next Tuesday after that? Well, then his rules just changed again. He's signing up for this moving target. Let me give you an example. If we had passed this policy and all these employees had signed this back in March when things first started, you would have been telling those employees, you can't go to church. Now, later we found out by a federal judge ruled that as unconstitutional. Don't roll your eyes. That's exactly what you're asking them to sign up for.
I'm not sure exactly how we got to.
Me either.
What? No, don't try to belittle it, okay?
I'm not belittling.
That's a perfect example. If you had passed this in March, those employees would have signed up and said, okay, I'm giving up my right to go to church, and wouldn't have been able to go to church without their employer getting onto them until a federal judge said, oh yeah, that was unconstitutional.
Well, let's get back to the comments that you made about your personal time. To a point, I understand that, but what you do on your personal time does matter if it impacts your workplace. So I taught for 2 school systems. Both the superintendents are out here. If I went out and got drunk and started having chronic absenteeism, and there were issues with my performance in the classroom because of my drinking on the weekends, then I don't believe I would have a job. At the very least, they would get help. So I have to disagree that what we do in our private lives does not, that you can always keep that separate. And it doesn't matter. Sometimes it doesn't, but sometimes it does.
But go ahead.
And in this situation, it is beginning to impact what happens on the job. Wells Fargo has a policy, and their people have to follow safety protocol off the job. And it's because they know that it impacts not just their performance on the job, but when they bring that into the job, then they expose other people. And it costs the company money, and it's irresponsible. So in this case, it's like we're a company, and our company provides services for our citizens. So I don't think it's unfair to ask our employees to behave responsibly in their personal lives. People in the nursing homes that are dying, where all of them are getting sick. It's that employee that comes in that brings it, and it's that employee that has been out in some group setting somewhere that's gotten it from somebody that doesn't show any symptoms. And Dr. O from Wake Forest says that 30% of people that have it don't show symptoms. So they're not trying to be irresponsible, but by making those choices and not protecting themselves, then when they come back to work, then they're exposing others. So if I work next to you and you bring that into the workplace, and then I get it and I have to quarantine, then I lose that time on the job. So it's not fair to me to have to take my sick leave, and now employees are out of sick leave because so many are having to be quarantined because of it. So their behavior off the job is impacting the job. I had a citizen to tell me over the weekend that they had to call, a family member had to call EMS, had to call 911. They sent 2 people. The person that needed help was a very large man. One of the people they sent was a very pregnant, small woman who could not lift him. So the son of the man had to help the other worker, EMS worker, load him. And so when he asked, why are you working? Why did they send you? Well, there was nobody else to send because so many people were out or on other calls. This is not a person that is usually sent on calls right at this point in time because of that medical condition. They work in a different capacity. But because of that, they're out picking up somebody and helping take them in, and they physically could not do it. So it is impacting the services we provide our citizens. Our citizens go to the hospital. There's no room for them here. If they need COVID treatment, they get sent to Greensboro. If there's no room in Greensboro, they get sent to the next hospital. There has been an occasion or two where we sent somebody to Charlotte. That's a long way to go if you have an emergency. So when it becomes so widespread, when you bring it onto the job, when you expose other workers, it impacts everything we do. It just does, and there's no way around it. So as for requiring people, well, no, I don't think we should require it. But then again, I don't do things because they're required.
No.
I do things because it's the right thing to do. I am called to a higher power than government. And I do things because it's a right thing to do. So we should make them aware that it's the right thing to do and ask them to do it. Does that suit you?
That's wonderful. I mean, I trust our employees that they'll do the right thing. And I bet the 58 people that have been affected, I mean, how many of those people, is it 58 people that have tested positive? I mean, how many of them, that 58 tested positive because they caught it at work, not outside of work?
I hear the same message, that expect it, that's what we want, that's what we're after. I think it's, as I said a while ago, it's the method. I don't think that we have a legal right to make them sign that agreement. But the message, you can post it everywhere. But that's what we've tried to do all along, is have people, like you said, Hope, take some
Ask
responsibility.
people to get on board with doing the
But
right thing.
yeah,
because it's right.
I don't think that signing that note is a way to do it.
I'll make that clear to the department heads.
What is when they sign that, what is the language? What does it say?
It says it's the expectation of Randolph County government that all our employees follow all public health and state directives relative to the COVID pandemic while working and when off duty. And I think that says just follow what the laws are.
Commissioner Kidd, two-thirds of the workers at Crossroad were out at one time. Two-thirds.
Okay, your point?
All of them got it on the job from one person who got it off the job.
Okay.
So when you say that people are getting it on the job, who do you think they're getting it from?
Well, I mean,
They're
when
getting it
do you
from
start
somebody who
tracking
got it
that?
off the job and brought it in.
I mean, so then everybody that's ever got COVID that works for the county basically got it off the job because somebody had to bring it in from somewhere and nobody ever catches it from anybody
When
at
it
work.
becomes so widespread in the community, absolutely. Absolutely.
Well, there's a
I
lot.
agree that people should not have to sign this document, but I also firmly believe that if our employees are responsible, that they will just for right now behave responsibly in their private lives to protect others because they.
I would ask them to do that. I have no problem asking them to do that. It's just when we go this far,
Okay.
you know,
But we're
because
going
we're in a pandemic, we're just
I can
grabbing
correct
everything.
that.
we're going to pull the memo.
Yeah, well, the memo's already been sent, but I can explain that signature just says that they've received it, that there's not committing them to anything, if that's what the board wants to do.
Well, that's one thing I was kind of getting to when I asked that is can't you say that, I mean, somehow get it in there that I acknowledge reading this.
Yes,
You know,
It's like a employee handbook.
yeah.
Yes,
like I'm
yes.
saying,
That policy, yeah.
I
yeah,
acknowledge that.
follow
You've
the
read it
existing
and-
laws.
I mean, maybe
I
that
can
may
take
do
care of
that you
that.
acknowledge that you read that policy and understand it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and the fact you've got other people on there, the department head or whatever signs it, says, I know that they did, but it's not obligating anybody to anything. But I can see reading it there, if, again, your obligation is that you've read it.
Yeah,
I think
I
that's
can
a
take
good
care of that.
idea.
okay,
Because then you have, if there are legal issues that come up,
Right.
then you can say,
Hey, you've read this, you said you read it.
And Al, we have an attendance policy, don't we?
right,
So you can use an attendance policy to enforce excessive or overusing.
yeah. But I can clarify all that tomorrow.
I don't think it'd take
Sure
much to
thing.
change that. I mean,
No.
I think the big thing is say,
good idea.
this is things, acknowledge that I read it, I acknowledge it.
Yeah, because you acknowledge you read the employee
Right.
handbook, right?
Yeah, you have to, we do that.
We can do that.
And we make updates to that periodically anyway.
Yes, yes.
Okay.
All right. Any other discussion? Good discussion. Let's do that tomorrow.
Okay.
A lot of this is covered. We had I think it was our third Zoom conference with all of our mayors and managers last Wednesday. David and I participated with the county, and basically the same things we've been saying, and we're trying to carry the message across the county into our municipalities, that we all want to do everything that we can within reason to curtail the spread of the virus. It seems it outworks us, but we had our purpose that was stated there was that we would set an example for our citizens, that we as the elected officials, and we read the resolution that is in your agenda today, and that group had agreed to support that resolution within their own municipalities. I think Ashboro did some more things on their own, from what I understand. I haven't seen it in the paper, but I understand they did. So with that, our resolution that's in the agenda, David, you want to?
Well, if I take just a few minutes as a preface to it, our case count as of today is somewhere, I think public health was so busy that they couldn't get through all of the processing. So we don't have a number, but it's plus over 200 over the weekend. So that would bring our case count up to over 6,000 cases. Since our last meeting, that's over 2,000 cases. And so I think that's the reason that we're addressing this issue tonight, because just of the sheer volume of what's going on. Today, I think we had 95 deaths as of today. 97, so that's another 30 since our last meeting. That's a third of what we're increasing over the past month, 50%. A month ago, our percentage positivity was 8.6%. I don't know what it may be now, but I think the last was 9.3 or something like that.
Yes.
So it's serious. I went back and looked at some of the numbers off the last report and came up with what I'm going to call a survivability rate, basically taking a number of people, number of cases out there and basically dividing the folks that have not died and dividing that by the number of total cases. To get what I'm going to call it, if you come down with COVID, this is what your probability of surviving it would be. So it's very elementary. But I'm looking for trends, and in those trends, overall, the rate for Randolph County using last week's numbers is 98.42%. 0 to 17, 18 to 24, no fatalities, 100% survivability. But then you come down to the 26 to 49, their survivability rate is 99.6. You come down to the 65 to 74, it drops to 95. You go over 75, it drops to 91%, a little over 91%. Female, gender versus male, hope 98.92%. Gentlemen, 97.85. Looking at age, the groups by race, overall, as I said, 98.42. But within our minority communities, Black and African American, it's 96.85, and then our Asian community, 96.33. So there's some disparities in those numbers. And then as far as hospitalizations go, the survivability rate, if you've been hospitalized, is 83.5%. In the past 4 weeks, it's 75%. So those numbers are going the wrong way. So it's a serious situation. I know Hal talked about, did a good job of, I wrote down 2 words before the meeting tonight, and he went through both of them. One is expectations. I remember when my daughter was in church, she was going to come up to big church out of the nursery. My wife and I sang in the choir, she played the organ. We had no one to kind of look after her, but there was a lady, her name was Addie Taylor. She was had no biological children of her own, but she was a mom to a lot of kids in that church. And we asked Addie if she would look after Laura. And her expectations were extremely high. And we never had a bit of trouble out of Laura that I recall, because the expectation was set at a certain rate. And Laura my daughter did not want to violate that. She wanted to please Addie. And in that same light, we need to set the expectations, which we've talked about for our employees of the county, but also for ourselves as elected officials here and in the municipalities, but also in our communities as well. And I don't know that we've done a great job of setting the expectations that this is a serious situation and we can make a difference in doing the things that we're going to talk about. And the other word that I wrote down was resources. If we have a limited number of resources, as Hal said, my concern is that somebody's going to make that 911 call and there's not going to be anybody there to do it. We haven't even talked about the first responders and the fire departments. Those small fire departments might have 2 or 3 first responders you can count on. If they are quarantining or if they have COVID, the response time is just going to be unacceptable. That's the fear. I have confidence in our department heads that they will make it work, but it's putting a strain on public health. It's putting a strain on EMS. It's putting a strain on DSS. It's putting a strain on the sheriff's office. And I guess when you're frustrated and you can't do anything else, you pass a resolution. So that's what we're looking to do tonight. It's in the packet. I just want to highlight a couple things. One is it's a resolution in support of public health measures to slow the spread of COVID-19 in Randolph County. Hal, I would ask the clerks to update the numbers there if we were to pass this in one of the whereases, but just highlight a couple of the whereases. Whereas slowing the controlling the spread of COVID-19 is critical to the health of our citizens and requires cooperation of the public with public health measures to slow the spread of the virus during the pandemic. Whereas the commissioners wish to alert citizens to the risks associated with COVID-19 and encourages every citizen to take necessary precautions. Whereas the Randolph County Board of Commissioners reminds citizens the continued willingness of all individuals to adopt and abide by these recommendations in this resolution will almost certainly have a positive impact on reducing the spread of the disease and decrease the likelihood of necessity for future public health orders. Therefore, be it resolved, essentially to cooperate with public health in contact tracing, I'm paraphrasing there, maintaining 6 feet social distance, wearing face coverings when it's not possible social distance, washing hands, staying home if you're sick, stay home and travel, only for essential purposes if you're a high-risk individual, which is 65 years, basically following the White House protocols. And then lastly, be it further resolved that the Randolph County Board of Commissioners also continue to review at least weekly in conjunction with Randolph County Public Health the status of COVID-19 in the county and whether the community spread related or otherwise to determine potential future action. So, Mr. Chairman, I would make that in the form of a motion that we adopt the resolution provided in the packet. I also like to thank Hal and Susan Hayes, Public Health, for help putting that together.
Is there a second to the motion?
Second.
Discussion.
I'll just give you a quick discussion, and I'll try to be brief. I'm tired. I guess just in quick discussion, probably most of you figured out I'm not going to vote for this resolution. But anyway, and try to be brief. The biggest reason is that last further resolve. When I first read it, I kind of felt like, this was a couple weeks ago, or we saw it last month, that, I agree, we need to be safe. I had COVID, which most of you know. I did my thing. I was contacted by public health. They did a great job, made sure my wife was quarantined. I was quarantined. We stayed home for, 14 days. I got a lot of work done. Anyway, did all those things. I washed my hands, the whole 9 yards, try to do whatever you can. Again, I have no problem encouraging people to be ultimately very safe. And if you're at an at-risk group, for goodness sake, stay home. But I do feel like it's a little bit of an empowering document, but this last be it resolved, where we get into the potential need for further action. And my proof of that is, the debate we just had about, county government reaching into this private off-duty time. This was all discussed at that Zoom meeting, and, all these municipalities talked about this resolution. Clearly that empowered the county to go ahead with that previous policy. So there's an example of it is an empowering document. Also, I watched the city council meeting from Asheboro City Council the other night on their YouTube channel, and David Smith referred to this document several times as kind of an empowering piece to encourage the city of Asheboro to go further, to start policing some of Cooper's executive orders in the city of Asheboro. And, and issuing some corrective action and going as far as they have to write some tickets and issue citations, with no reference to, law enforcement or the district attorney's office. But anyway, that's the only reason for voting against it is I feel like it empowers us to go far beyond what I feel like, is the role of government. But anyway, that's all.
I don't see anything here that empowers us to go far beyond the role of government. So I disagree
That's
with you
okay.
there. I think the purpose of this document is to, I'm reading every one now. I'll be glad to David, you might want to read those so that people can hear those.
Well, I
Or can you
kind of paraphrased, I didn't want to take a lot of time.
Well, I know that, but
Well, I don't necessarily disagree with the whereases. I mean,
Yeah,
we are in a
there's- I
pandemic.
mean, there's
Whereas
nothing with,
are pretty much statements of fact.
exactly, and so I don't see anything in there that is not already out there that people aren't being asked to do, and we're just saying that we, are on board with those things. So
Well, if we're already
I don't
asking them to
see
do it, we're
anything
just asking them to do it
empowering
again.
about
That's okay.
Well, I mean, I think that the way I read the last statement is that we need to continue to monitor it, and we don't need to just say, okay, this is it, we're done. Because this is a moving target. I mean, we haven't even got to the vaccination point yet. It's very generic. It was done that way. I will point out, since you mentioned it, Commissioner Kidd, that this was originally on our agenda last time and it got pulled.
Yep.
So I'm glad to see that we finally got it on the agenda after we've had another 2,000 cases. So I'm happy to present that tonight.
I might also add that we're not seeing all the cases from Thanksgiving yet.
I want to make one correction. The resolution was not on the agenda. What was on the agenda was to discuss the letter that came to the county and the health department from Mandy Cohen that was asking counties, local governments, to impose far-reaching restrictions on the lives of our citizens. The resolution came up, the idea of a resolution came up in other discussions with the manager after the agenda had been prepared. The resolution itself was not stated on the agenda. Unless Hal changed your copy from the one I have.
had asked that we have that put on the agenda. It's my understanding it was going to be put on the agenda, and it mysteriously disappeared.
Hal and I met first, and what was on there was a discussion of the letter from Mandy Cohen with the State Department of Health and Human Services.
That's not what I was requesting to be put on the agenda.
And then the idea came.
This similar document was what I was requesting, as Commissioner Kidd referred to earlier.
Well, I did see a copy of it, I believe, because you sent it to everybody. But, sometimes resolutions get shot down. But go
I
ahead.
don't believe I sent it to everybody. I try not to send it.
I got a copy of it
directly.
from
You probably
somebody.
got it from
Anyway,
that.
anyway.
I don't send it directly to the commissioners because that can be construed as being a public meeting. So I try to work everything through Hal.
Any other comments on the resolution? You could consider dropping that last to determine for further action.
I think we already have a motion and a second.
We would.
That's fine. I have no problem just voting against it in general. No problem at all.
All right. Any other discussion on the motion? Those in favor will say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no.
No.
All right. Passes 4-1. All right. I'm going to move down on the agenda to the public hearing on the closing of Coal Mountain Road for some of you that are here tonight. And we'll come back and pick up the remainder of our agenda. So, Amy?
Well, I got to find this one.
Okay, well, as you may remember, I had received a request to close a portion of Coal Mountain Road. The request was submitted by Sherry Craig on behalf of her parents, Milton and Patricia Cole. The Coles own the property on both sides of the portion of the road that is the subject of the request. It does appear at some point in history that the road existed. Has not been used for many years, and trees are currently, or grasses and trees growing up through the middle of it, and the portion is not state maintained. The procedure for closing a public road is governed by North Carolina General Statute 153A-241. The first step involved you adopting a resolution of intent to close the road and calling for a public hearing. And you adopted that resolution at your last meeting. In accordance with the statute, notice of the public hearing was published once a week for 3 successive weeks. And it also requires that notice be sent by certified mail to any owner that adjoins the road that did not join in the request, but the Coles owned the property on both sides of the road, so no mailing was made, but there was a public posting at the road in two different places, also in accordance with the statute. Tonight's the public hearing. After everyone has spoken, if you are satisfied that closing that portion of the road will not be detrimental to the public interest and will not deprive any individual of access to his or her property, you can adopt the order that is enclosed that would close the road, and then a certified copy of that would be filed with the Register of Deeds office, and that would in effect close the road. I'd like to point out also that the statute specifically states, if you do close the road, how the property is divided, because that question was posed to me by a citizen, so I thought I would address that before you start the public hearing. But the statute specifically says that upon the closing of a public road or easement pursuant to this section, all right, title, and interest in the right-of-way is vested in those persons owning lots or parcels of land adjacent to the road or easement, and the title of each adjoining landowner for the width of his abutting land extends to the center line of the road. So it kind of splits from the center line to the abutting property owners.
So in this case, it's property on the same.
It's the same property owners, and it's the property owners that requested it. And also, if there is any public utility use or facility located on or under the road, it remains subject to that utility use until that landowner or any successor pays to have that removed, pays to have that moved. So they can't just cut off the utilities or anything like that. I just wanted to let you know that's what the statute says as far as how the property's divided. So tonight's the public hearing, and then you make your decision.
Any questions of Amy? All right, we will open the public hearing for those who are in attendance and wish to speak to this issue. We'll ask you when you come forward to please identify yourself by name and address so that we can make proper notations in the minutes of our meeting tonight. So we will open the public hearing. Is there anyone here who wishes to speak to this issue?
Mr. Chairman, we have 3 names on our list.
Oh, okay. I'm sorry.
The first on our list is Eddie Lambert. And after each of you speak, if you'll please come add your address and city to this.
That's why I wanted to be first. Dry mouth. My name is Eddie Lambert. My wife and I live at 2362 Coal Mountain Road. My wife and I have been a resident of Coal Mountain Road for 40 years now. And we are opposed to the request to do away with the Coal Mountain Road. I'm calling it extension. As you know, we currently have 4 schools, 2 URE charter schools, 2 county schools, Southwest Middle, Southwest High School, with a soon-to-be 5th URE elementary school within just a few miles of Coal Mountain Road. Along with a prosperous Harley-Davidson dealership down 134. Our concern is that we will need the extension in the near future due to continued increase in traffic. Coal Mountain Road is located approximately 50 feet from Interstate 73, 74, exit 68, which is Eula Troy exit ramp. At times, you must wait, and wait again for an opening to enter Dawson Miller Road. Most of the ramp traffic goes to Highway 134 or to the schools, depending on time of day. And sometimes you take a chance and nothing's coming, you pull out, nobody's on the ramp, you pull out, there's a car coming down the ramp, and the rascal doesn't stop, so he honks the horn at you for him running the stop sign. So, an advantage of the extension offers the residents of Coal Mountain Road it's just west of Highway 134, which has a left turn lane, and it provides a safer opportunity to enter Dawson Miller Road. This is in case the increase in traffic. Then our current outlet during traffic congestions. We feel it is important to keep this safer option available for use. My wife and I have often discussed that we need a stoplight to safely control the traffic at these intersections. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Sir, can you please come add your address to the sheet?
Yes.
Who was next?
Next is Eric and Donna Hill.
Could I ask him a question?
Oh, I'm sorry.
For Lambert.
Yes.
So that road, the road that is being requested that it be closed, the owner, didn't the property owners at one time take money to bring that up to state standard with the rest of it? Okay, so that could be done in the future if it is not closed. If you wanted.
I think within half a day, that road will be open and used. I think the reason that road has not been used in years is there's a tree from the whole property across the road.
Yeah. The expense would be on the property owner to bring that road up to state standards. That's what those neighbors did previously.
Right.
With the part that was.
We all split it up and got it where the state would take the road.
Yeah.
So all of the property owners split up and pay their share.
Yeah, the state will require it to be brought up to state standards before they'll add it to the system and maintain it going forward.
Sure. But if it's closed, that would not be an option.
Correct.
I'm sorry.
Hello, my name is Eric Hill,
And I'm Donna Hill.
and we live at 2402 Coal Mountain Road. As Mr. Lambert said, same things. We oppose the road being closed. The intent of the subdivision, when the subdivision was first developed, that particular section was the main entrance into Coal Mountain subdivision. Over the years, the current entrance that is mainly used, it was developed. Again, the road at that point, as Mr. Lambert said, years ago, it was the owners at the time up there paid to have the road brought to state mandate, paid to have it paved. That particular section of road was left gravel. At the time, the property owner didn't pay to participate in that. So it was left as gravel. The road was used for numerous numbers of years, up until the point from a tree fell across the road, as Mr. Lambert stated, causing the road not to be able to be accessed. It fell from the property owner's land. They didn't clear it. The current road now, either by it also has utilities that run up parallel to the road, both telephone, cable, and power. At some point in time, the tree that did fall across the road has been moved slightly. You can, if you had a four-wheel drive vehicle, you could drive down it now. However, because the tree was there, grass grew up, tree sprung, you can't use it. So it is our request that it be left as is. The current property owners of those two lots that adjoin that land have not lived in the area for over 20 years. So it's our request that we leave as is, with future hopes that we may turn that back into a state-maintained road again, doing the same thing by participating in paying to have it brought up to state code. By all the deeds and plats that I've personally looked at, and by no means am I a lawyer, it's still titled as State Road 1240, although it is not state maintained.
And I also agree with Mr. Lambert when he mentioned about trying to leave out of our current road. I have to be at work at 7:15 every morning. I work at Balfour Elementary School up North Ashboro. And at 7 o'clock, anywhere between 7 and 7:30, I can sit there for 5 minutes watching traffic roll off of the bypass. And I've even thought to myself, if I had that other access, I could cut left and I could go. But I can't because we've not been able to use that road. But I've even thought sometimes of having to turn right, but I'm constantly battling the traffic coming off of the bypass because there is so much that does filter both to URA Charter and to the middle and the high school. So I grew up on the mountain. I lived in the first house built, and it's a special place. It's a special community.
Let me ask a couple questions about it. We're talking about the tree that's laying there. Is the tree laying there on that site now?
It is to the side of the road now.
Not been moved?
Yeah, at some point in time, either the, utilities moved it. When it originally failed, it was completely across, denying full access. And, this has been 10 plus years. So at some point in time from the pictures, it is slightly off to the side of what used to be gravel. And you can tell if you walk it where the top of the tree is either decayed or somebody has cut it.
We've had power issues in the past few years with storms, so I'm sure the power company assisted along the way.
Or either cleared it because of right of way to the power lines.
Yes, because those are right there beside of that road.
And all of the public utilities come up that right
No, it actually comes into that community from two ways. It comes up off of Dawson Miller Road, up that section, and then it comes across on the back side of that community.
But the main avenue of power, cable, and telephone does come up that section.
What precludes the state to go ahead and pay that if y'all have already?
Mr. McDowell, we haven't really checked into it. Again, as I've stated, the property owners haven't lived in the area in 20 years. It's not come up. As Miss Amy said that, because the property owners, and I forgot your last name, I'm sorry. As she said, because the property owners own both sides, which they've not always owned both sides of the road while that road was there. No one on the community got a letter of the road. No one was asked in the community, hey, we're thinking about, requesting this road closed. We don't know why the request is to have the road closed. We didn't know until the signs went up at the end of the road saying that there was a public hearing on it at that time. We drafted a letter. Everyone within that lives on the mountain, with the exception of 2 tenants, that one was at the beach and one wasn't home, signed a letter that we had sent to the board requesting that it stayed open.
Again, to clarify in my mind, is the tree being there a problem with the state actually?
Commissioner McDowell, I'm not sure. It was a problem while the road wasn't used, and I don't know why it was not whenever. I do not know the time frame of when it was deemed non-state maintained.
It's my understanding that the state doesn't maintain that section at all.
No.
I couldn't bring it to
They won't.
you for a closure if that portion was still under state control.
I don't think, I rode out there yesterday. There's more problems with a couple of saplings growing up in the middle of the road than there is on that tree.
Right.
But the tree is the main reason why the road became blocked, and it was not cleaned up. It
Right.
fell from Mr. Cole's property across our road.
But to upgrade it to state standards, you got a couple of saplings you'd have to move,
Sure.
and it looks like it's graded out
Sure.
to state standards. So I mean, you could.
It was at one time, graded out the
It
state
takes some
standard.
work, but it's,
And then, but it was left gravel because it didn't participate in the paving process.
right. So they didn't, I'm familiar with that. My parents had the same situation, on a dirt road. So.
Which, until the tree fell across, no one had a problem driving on gravel to,
The few hundred feet it was.
yeah.
Yeah, the tree falling allowed all that other growth.
Right.
Yes, sir.
But my question is, if it were DOT acceptable, I guess is the
DOT
right word?
would maintain it, they would take care of that tree.
Yeah, they would.
Or the fire department probably go out there and cut it out of the road.
Yeah. Yeah, if it was state maintained, as soon as that tree fell, they would have moved it.
They'd be on it.
Somebody get it, yeah.
Well,
In a perfect world.
In a perfect world.
they are staying on the road.
Yes,
Provided they don't have COVID in their shortfalls.
right. All right. Other questions?
Yes, I was looking through my notes again. I was looking to see if I saw, so did Mr. Irwin Cole own the property on either side when the road was built?
Yes.
Okay, and so after the road was built, at some point in time, he passed, and the road, and those lots were sold, bought, or given away, or
Yes,
inherited, or something?
yes.
Okay. Okay. All right.
Anything else?
Thank you.
Thank you.
Wade Brown.
Mr. Chairman
Wade.
and Commissioners, I'm Wade Brown. I live at 2293 Coal Mountain Road. Been there for 50-plus years. And I guess I'm the grandpa of the one that got the road where it's at today. I worked with one of the county commissioners. He helped me get it presented to the state to where they would accept it and agree to bring it up to state spec to be paid.
Yep.
We had meetings of the neighborhood. Everybody was there, including the Coles. Milton was there. And everybody knew what was going on. And it came down to the state agreeing to, but we had to pay $24,000 to get it brought up, to get it brought up to where it could be paved. And at that time, they graded that part, pulled the ditches, graded it up, and got it ready to pave. And then they come and said that we're not going to do that, or we're not going to maintain that part. Well, we let it go, all well and good, you know. We got the part around there that was bringing the dust in and everything, we got it paved. And so that's where it's at today. Everybody put in money except one. And we all agreed that we wouldn't, you know, you could charge by the foot to get it paid, but we all agreed that we just split it. I forgot how many people was involved, but we split it 7 or 8 ways, or whatever it was, to keep from putting a burden on any one individual. And so the one that didn't pay, it enhanced their property because there's 400 or 500 feet west of the house that is on Coal Mountain Road. And so that's about it. You know, that's everything else has been covered pretty good, I think. I don't know if I can add any more.
So everybody participated but one.
That's true.
In that particular piece and all the rest as well?
Yes.
And I don't believe you stated who that one was.
Mr. Cole.
Mr. Cole. Okay.
Thank you, Wade. Anyone else? Is there anyone else who wishes to speak? Then we will close the public hearing. We'll come back into our, oh, I'm sorry. Yes. Public hearing is still open.
What was that?
Public hearing is still open.
Yes. Hi, my name is Commissioner, Chairman, people. My name is Sherry Craig Cole, or Cole Craig. I am the daughter of the Milton and Pat Cole who are requesting the closure. I've heard some of the comments that some of the people have made, and with regards to the safety of coming out, that second entrance that was once an entrance, if you come out on that too, it's a curve on both sides, and 134 is right there. So that road is just as unsafe as the other road, the other entrance. So with regards to that point that they were making, I would say that really doesn't play into it. I think I sent you each a packet of information with regards to where the land is and how it is drawn out and what those plots look like. So I hope you all had a chance to look at that. And I didn't know if you guys had any questions for me with regards to any of that information.
Anyone have a question?
Now, again, you're a relation to the Coles.
Right. Milton and Pat Cole are my parents.
They're your parents.
Yes.
Okay.
And the whole reason this came about was I was helping my parents with regards to their land. And if you can see on the plots that I gave you, there's that triangle and the big square, 2.1 acres and 0.6 acres or 0.5 acres. And trying to just combine the land to make one plot. We have hired a surveyor, so we put that surveyor on hold because I was trying to redo the land, and it's expensive to do it twice. So that was the main reason, was just to join all that land together into one plot.
But both of those tracks would open onto Dawson Mill Road.
Yes.
With the driveway.
Yes, and my parents' driveway does exit onto Dawson Miller Road. And the reason why they didn't pay was because their land, they didn't exit their home onto that road.
But you're at this point in time wanting to close that, so it'll join all of that together
Yes, sir.
in one piece,
Yes, sir.
and sell it all in one tract to somebody?
Well, I didn't say that.
So you're not
No, no. That land will not be sold.
It will.
It will not be sold.
It will not be sold. Do you have plans to do something with it?
No, not at this time. I was just trying to make some things easier, and I spoke with Amy, and it seemed like an easy process, but I didn't realize it was going to be so difficult. So,
Everything's difficult.
yes, I found that out.
Mr. Chairman, I'd also like to point out that this wasn't really an issue at all about the closure of this until my wife brought it to the county's attention and attempted to go through this process. So the homeowners that live around the land up at the top of the mountain, they've been using this other entrance for years. I'm guessing at least for 10 years this road has been impassable, the one under question. And so if it wasn't an issue until now, I don't understand what the problem was if it was so important to not have brought it up before now.
UR Charter School came into play. Harley Davidson came into play. And when you made the motion, you didn't ask the landowners of the properties up there if it meant anything to them.
Were y'all aware of the tree falling?
I was not aware of the
I
tree
was
falling.
not. My parents may have, but I wasn't. But as you can see from the pictures that I provided, what it looks like today.
Were you asked to move the tree?
Excuse me?
Were you asked to remove it?
I was not. I don't know when that tree fell.
Right. Any other questions? Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Can you both please come sign the sign-up sheet?
Is there anyone else who wishes to speak to this issue? All right, hearing none, we will close the public hearing, and we will come back to our regular agenda and ask for pleasure of the board.
Well, Mr. Chairman, from my standpoint, been that way for years. Those people have stayed there with that going on and that being in place. There are questions about why it hasn't been open in years, that's for sure. But I think for the people in that community, we leave it like it is.
Would you speak into the mic?
Oh, I'm sorry. I think for the people in that community, we leave it like it is.
So, are you gonna make a motion?
I'll make that motion.
That we leave the road open.
Leave the road open.
All right, is there a second to the motion?
I would second that motion, Mr. Chairman.
Further discussion? So the motion is that we leave it as is. Any other discussion? Those in favor of the motion will say aye. Aye. Opposed, no. And the road remains open. Thank all of you for your participation. Okay, we will go back to item B, which is adding a public health strategist to the county's classification plan. Susan Hayes. Susan, before you start, and it's sort of tied to this, the report that you send out every Friday, and the one that was referred to this morning, with that 8.6 positivity, but that was a week, that we're dragging a week, is that right? And do y'all not do that calculation? Is somebody else doing that?
That's why I'm asking for this position.
Pardon?
That's why I'm asking for this position.
But
reclassification. The state does this. We don't have the capability to do this stuff in our agency.
So we've always been a week behind.
Yeah, and that partly why it's like that, Chairman Fry, is because this positivity rate is it is the proportion of positive tests for all the tests that are done in the state. So all tests reported electronically is the denominator, and the numerator is the number of positive tests that we get.
And that positivity rate is what could put us into a red classification.
And I feel like we will be, honestly, because for the week of 11/22 to 11/28, it was 8.6. The last 4 days of this report, which was 11/29 through 12/2, we were at 10.7. We had 499 positive cases last week. We've never had that many, ever. Just this weekend, we had at least 206 for 2 days. And I got a text from our director of nursing that works 24/7. I mean, she literally works day and night. I don't know when she sleeps. And she has a little boy that's 3 years old that said that we contacted 156 positive individuals today, and we still have 106 left to contact. Typically, when we get our cases, we call people right then and talk with them, let them know what they need to do, find out who their contacts are, and that information is entered into the COVID database that the state maintains. So we are never behind. This is the first time in 9 months. We've been in the EOC 9 months as of Friday, December 4th. This is the first time in 9 months that we've been behind. So, yeah, the state is behind, but that I'm sure has to do with how the labs are reported in that electronic system, and that's as quick as they can get it. So they report, we got 11/29 through 12/2, but that's not a full 7 days. And typically that positivity rate is based on a 7-day report. Does that make sense?
Yes, thank you.
I think, was the hospital capacity that may have been saving us?
Yeah, probably, but one of the metrics there's 3 metrics that the state uses to determine whether or not we are a red county. 1 is the number of new cases that we have. 2 is the percent positivity, and 3 is the hospitalizations related to our county. And as you know, most likely, if you watch the news, the central part of North Carolina has the most hospitalizations of any part of the state. And we are having to send people to Charlotte, Chapel Hill. When y'all speak to Donovan, ask him, the numbers of individuals they are picking up now has increased. So that does play a role in whether or not we are a red county. And what the state is doing mimics what President Trump's coronavirus task force is doing. So it's the very same metrics, the very same thing as the president's.
All right. Is that your presentation, or you?
No, sir. I'm on the agenda to ask you to add a classification to the classification plan. This position classification is not on the plan currently. As we've gotten into the coronavirus pandemic, it's become very clear that it would be to the county's advantage, and of course to public health's advantage, to have someone who could look at data, who could specialize in evaluating health status indicators, mortality and morbidity trends, and the variables affecting the health of Randolph County. Typically, right now, that is done by a number of us who know a little bit about all that, but we are not specialists in that area by any means. Our health educators help us with that. Tara does a lot of it, our assistant health director, as do I. We've all had training in that area, but we are not specialists. We are not epidemiologists. So what we would like to do is take a public health education 1 position, make that person that specialist who would be able to give us the kind of data that would be helpful to you and to the county and to public health, so that we could better make decisions on how to address health issues within the county. That position would also be available to all of our agency programs, certainly our communicable disease staff, our environmental health staff, health promotion, all of our community partners. If they needed help, we could certainly help them with things. But they would all also be the manager of our health education, health promotion team. So that is what I'm asking, and they would, be available to you should you need help with data and interpreting that data and whatever. So that is my request.
Is that a new hire, or would you take an existing employee and provide additional training?
We could not get somebody quick enough to help us. It would be a new hire. There is no funding, no additional funding that I'm asking for. So it would be a new hire. We don't have anybody in-house with those skills, and it would take quite a bit of training to get the kind of skills we need. I don't know how easy it will be to find somebody like this. There are a number of counties that already have these kinds of positions. Chatham is one. I think New Hanover maybe. There were a number, and right now I don't, Cabarrus might. Can you remember? Catawba, that's the one. Catawba already has one. So we're not trendsetters by any chance. There are other counties who have seen that need and have done the same thing.
I'd just like to say when, when I saw this, it reminded me of the years I spent with the county doing a reading program that they had invested a lot of money in. And it was delivered by computer to students. And it had this, part of what made it so valuable was the data component. The problem was the teachers didn't have the time to use the data. They didn't have the time to study the data. And so they really, that feature got totally overlooked. So here the county was paying all this money, very expensive program, excellent program, but very expensive. And so, I studied the data. I worked with the program, but then I also studied the data, and I began to pull the data off and give it to each individual teacher. And so with that data in hand, they could understand what specific skills their students, each student was missing, what they needed to work on, and we could program this computer program to deliver that to that student, that skill area where they needed help. It also made projections for where they were and how they would be, perform on end of grade test. So it was very valuable information, but it had lain unused for at least a year before they hired me, because nobody knew enough about it to use it. And so since I could devote that time to it, dig in and do that, then it became a very valuable resource for the classroom teachers. So I can see this as being a very, very valuable position, not just to you, but to the county as well.
What would be different with the information we get weekly?
Well, I mean, it depends on the situation that we're talking about. Each year we do not each year, we do it every 3 years, a community health assessment in conjunction with the hospital. We've done that since eons ago, since before I came to work 30-some years ago with the county. So, that's one piece of it. Strategic planning would be another thing. It just depends on what we've got going on in the county and how that might look different. Right now it might not be anything different because the state has what they have, but early on it would have been really helpful to have this because the state was a little slower in getting local governments or local health departments the data that everybody wanted. And we were pulling our hair out trying to get data for everybody and take care of, following up on COVID cases. So it would just, I think, be extremely beneficial in terms of the kind of information we could get eventually versus what we're able to do now with 3 or 4 or 5 of us trying to figure it out.
Can I interject here just a second to clarify for me? It sounds like that we're talking about somebody that's really a statistician.
Almost, yes. Somebody who knows.
But they've got to know what they're looking at for statistical analysis.
Yes.
And of course, when you talk about statistics, people's minds, their eyes go blank because it's a hard thing to deal with. But it sounded like to me we're talking about, and that's why it's so hard for you to say, where are we going to get this person? Because I'm sitting here thinking, where would you get that person? Because I can tell you, if you're into statistics, your brain is not thinking in the same way other people's brains.
Yeah.
And I don't know where you're going to find somebody with boy, that would be hard to find somebody doing that. Well, is that correct?
It is to some degree. There's a lot now in health and public health about population health and how you manage population health. And along with that, there's a lot of math involved and epidemiology is the same thing. It's looking at incidents of cases. And so, you know, when we have outbreaks, we start kind of looking at all that, whether it's a pandemic or a tuberculosis outbreak. So, yeah, there's all that is. It is some statistics, and then it's different than that. It's more health related.
I could see this, I mean, right now, we don't, you know, we're so caught up with COVID, we see everything through the COVID lens. But I could see this being very valuable just on an ongoing basis.
It would be.
In delivery of services and studying that data and the information we get from that and figuring out how to more effectively, you know, changes we can make and how we can more effectively deliver services to different populations.
It would be somebody who could help us determine, you know, what our metrics ought to be for how we deliver services, and are we reaching, you know, when we set goals and objectives, are we reaching the populations that we need to reach? And so it's you know, pretty broad, and certainly would be very helpful to all of our departments in terms of looking at how they provide services. Yes.
Questions?
Do you know if in the last budget process you asked for any additional positions?
In the last budget process?
In June, July? Do y'all recall?
I can't remember, Commissioner Kidd. Honestly, I don't remember. We asked for... We did ask for a physician's assistant / family nurse practitioner, and we asked for a bilingual health educator. Yes.
Is that bilingual health educator in place? We're still using that?
That bilingual health educator is in place.
Okay.
This position, we've lost people because of coronavirus. I had 2 excellent health educators that left us because they could not keep up with what we were doing.
Did you say it called a burnout?
Yes. Okay. So one of these positions is one of those positions. We filled the other one.
Which one's still open? What's still open?
This position that we want to reclassify.
So to re-clarify, you're not asking for an additional position?
No.
Just a reclassification?
Just a reclassification, and I'm not asking for any money.
Other questions? What's the pleasure of the board?
Well, I make a motion that we reclassify this position.
Second.
So I'm looking for it here for the right wording if I need it, but.
Public health strategist.
Public health strategist, thank you, Matt.
Second.
Further discussion, questions? Those in favor will say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no.
No.
And it passes.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right. Donovan?
My mouth is dry as a cottonmouth snake, so just read along with me. I appreciate your time on this matter. This is a state and national matter that a lot of 911 centers are bringing to their boards for consideration. And as the memo line item says, it's basically asking for you to consider this resolution we've provided that would recognize formally that 911 telecommunicators are considered first responders. Most agencies across the nation, federal, local, and state, recognize them as first responders, but the bottom line is in the personnel classification on the federal level, they are considered clerical staff.
Thank you for that.
Yeah, sorry. Yeah, had it on so long I forgot. 911 telecommunicators are the heartbeat of Randolph County and across the nation. Because of them, we all enjoy the benefit of knowing someone is always just a phone call away. Someone who will provide assistance every second, every minute, every day. The first critical contact our citizens and visitors have during an emergency is with the 911 telecommunicator who responds to their needs by coordinating and sending the appropriate help. The telecommunicator will often stay on the telephone to provide life-saving instructions and continued reassurance. They will continue to collect information, so to provide updates to emergency personnel who are responding to the call. Responders rely on this information to be prepared for what they are about to encounter. The 911 telecommunicator is a trained professional who provides more than just clerical support. They simultaneously manage multiple lines of communication by telephone and radio. They have the emotional discipline to remain calm while assisting a 911 caller who is terrified, overwhelmed, angry, or physically distressed. They can currently utilize numerous databases to provide vital information to law enforcement from the National Crime Information Center, state databases such as the Division of Motor Vehicles. They enter missing persons, stolen vehicles, and stolen guns into those same databases. Many calls require the combined response of law enforcement, fire, and EMS. Without that 911 telecommunicator to coordinate the response, completing the essential link between the agencies, the entire situation would or could become chaotic and mismanaged. On-scene responders rely heavily on the telecommunicator to coordinate and send additional resources such as air medical transport, North Carolina Forest Service equipment, utility companies, and much more. Telecommunicators track every move of every first responder to ensure their continued safety. Telecommunicators are trained in crisis intervention, the same crisis intervention course that law enforcement takes, our telecommunicators take. They have the basic knowledge of civil and criminal law, and they are certified medical responders through the state of North Carolina and nationally, who provide CPR instructions and other care, like assisting in delivering a baby over the telephone. A telecommunicator could easily be the first hostage negotiator, and they are routinely the first person to make contact with someone who is contemplating suicide. The overwhelming responsibility they shoulder during these calls is incomparable to any other job. It is, told you dry mouth. It is time for North Carolina General Assembly and the U.S. government to recognize that 911 telecommunicators for what they truly are, as first responder like other law enforcement officers, firefighters, paramedics, and rescue technicians. I'm here today to request your sponsorship by adopting the provided resolution that supports the national movement to reclassify 911 telecommunicators as first responders and truly acknowledge the work they do with great appreciation. It also requests that the state of North Carolina, the North Carolina General Assembly, and the U.S. federal government recognize, proclaim, and affirm the 911 telecommunicators are first responders. It's very important for many reasons. The Homeland Security Act of 2002 defines the term first responder as individuals who, in the early stages of an incident, are responsible for protection and preservation of life, property, evidence, and the environment. Who better, by this very definition, can be considered a first responder than the telecommunicator, who is the start of everything, from picking up the phone to creating a record in the computer-aided dispatch system with the very first keystroke to sending out the first wave of help, all the while providing life-saving instructions and coordinating multiple agency response. Telecommunicators are the nucleus of any emergency event. Reclassification would mean that the 911 telecommunicator is moved from an administrative clerical support classification position, such as a switchboard or telephone operator, to a protective classification such as law enforcement officers, firefighters, and even playground monitors. As always, I thank you for your continued support, and I'm happy to answer any questions you may have.
I have a question.
Okay.
So, just for clarification purposes, you're not asking to hire anybody?
No.
You're
Won't change.
You're not asking for any money?
No.
You're asking to reclassify positions?
We're asking for the North Carolina General Assembly and the U.S. federal government to recognize them in this classification, not on the local level. We're asking for your support to recognize simply that they
We're
are.
supporting their request. It really doesn't have,
Just
it's a recognition.
Yeah, won't change any of our positions, won't create anything.
It's just a resolution in support.
It's just a support resolution, yes,
And
sir.
we're going to send a copy of this to our local
Yes.
legislators.
Yes, sir.
Well, I have always viewed them as such, so I think it's,
Well, like I said, most agencies do, they just without thinking, but when you look on this came up last year on the national level, and it's been a big push with the North Carolina APCO, which is the Association of Public Communication Officials, and North Carolina NENA, which is the, and national, North Carolina Emergency Number Association, the two representative organizations of 911. So it's come up on that level, and they're trying to push for it on the federal level, but we need the state to do it as well.
Any questions of Donovan? All
The
right.
resolution is attached if you have any questions about it.
Does that entitle them to any federal benefits or anything?
No.
It's just a recognition?
No early retirement, nothing. It's just it's simply a play on words and to include them in a different group of people.
All right, what's the pleasure of the board?
I make the motion that we adopt this.
Second.
Motion and a second. Further discussion? Those in favor will say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. And it's approved.
Thank you all.
Sam Varner?
Good evening,
Good evening, Sam.
Mr. Chair, Commissioners. Wow, you're working hard tonight. Anyway, thank you for allowing me to present a brief wellness update. A couple parts of my presentation. Part number one, Randolph County government employees are our most valuable resource. County employees and their families are experiencing undue amounts of stress and anxiety that's affecting their physical, mental, emotional health, as you see on the slides there. This continual stress is leading to burnout, is affecting turnover. It's affecting potentially illness down the road, and it is certainly affecting the employees' morale. With that said, within the last month, we have created a resiliency task force. And this task force aim is to help our employees deal with the stresses that they are facing with the COVID. It's not only help our employees, but to help our families too. Our goal is to find ways to help employees cope with COVID-related stresses and help them build their emotional and mental resilience. With that said, our task force has members from administration. We have members from human resources. We have members from public health. We also have advisory board, a role from DSS. We also have a chaplain from the sheriff's office. We are in the process of surveying our employees. We want to find out what we can offer them, what they need. We have already implemented certain plans in certain parts of our employee areas. Our goal is to develop a comprehensive plan to improve the emotional and mental resiliency of every employee that works here. We are also using other tools. We are partnering with our employee assistance program. We are also working with Cigna, who has a national database of ways to improve the resiliency of employees. So we're using everything. As Will Massey said, everything is on the table. We're dividing up into 3 categories, as you'll see in the next slide here. Our first category is personal development. We are looking at ways to improve the personal development of our employees. Examples would be expanding counseling, expanding mental health support, and also stress management and mindfulness programs. We have implemented some of these programs already. The second category is work enhancement. The biggest request we're hearing right now for employees is rotating and flexible work schedule. We are doing that now, but we want to expand that because we're finding that employees are staying on the job longer, they're being stressed, and so we're investigating that aspect. We want to make it job specific. Certain jobs have different strategies or need different strategies than others, so we're investigating that as well. And the third thing, which to me is equally as important, is family support. Our families, our employees have stresses dealing with child care. A number of our employees have stresses dealing with elderly care. So we want to investigate all 3 of these aspects And that'll take place, as taking place, and we're working for the next several weeks. Before we move on to the next section, do you have any questions on this task force that we've created?
Can we have a copy of these slides?
Yes.
Okay, thanks.
They're running, they're just not running on our thing.
Okay.
You know what?
Put it on, you can get, yeah, very good.
I mean, I can see it, but
A hard copy.
Gotcha. Before I finish the presentation, I'd like to share with you some good news. I'm excited about this. This year, Randolph County government, within the last 30 days, we've received 2 national wellness awards. I'm really excited about this. We were awarded for the second year in a row, the Cigna Wellbeing Award. And I'll quote here, is awarded to the top county, we were the top county and municipality in North and South Carolina. If you see on that list there are only 3 businesses awarded in North and South Carolina. Premier out of Charlotte, which is a large company, RTC International, which is out of the Research Triangle. If you notice on that list, we were the only county or municipality in North Carolina. We were the top 55 in the United States. That's an incredible credit to our employees, to our management, to what we're doing for employee wellness. And as I said, this is the second year in a row that we have been awarded this through Cigna. In fact, Hal made a suggestion, we're going to have to build a trophy case in administration, which is a good thing. Here's something that also we received this in the last 2 weeks. There's a company out of Indianapolis called Springbok. They do extensive evaluations of all employees of businesses' employee wellness program. They have a metric system of about 35 benchmarks that they look at. We were asked to apply. It took about 2 days to apply for this award, and we were awarded the healthiest 100 in the United States. We were ranked number 25th from this award, and that is a credit, again, to our wellness program, to our employees, and to our management. And I'll read here what it says, and this was sent to us by the organization. We are honored to recognize Randolph County government as one of the healthiest 100 workplaces in America, signaling their commitment to employee well-being and exceptional health and wellness programming. So that's a credit to all of us in this room. It's a credit to our management. In fact, one of the highest benchmarks we received in the category was support from administration. Hal was a part of that. I'd like to thank, of course, Dana and Susan. They actually do the nuts and bolts of the program. But the credit goes to our department heads and, most importantly, our employees. So that is 2 huge awards that recognizes our county for our investment and our work that we're doing for our wellness program. Any questions?
Well, I noticed you left Will out of that list of people.
I didn't mean to. Will's the budget guy. Will is not only the budget guy, Will has given a lot of good wellness input, so believe it or not, he does that. Thank you, Will.
All right.
Any questions?
Any questions, Sam?
Thank you very much.
Congratulations and thank you.
Okay, Amy.
Okay, well, if you recall, I appeared before you last month to ask you to authorize a public auction for a sale of a piece of property that the county ended up with in a tax foreclosure sale. It's a vacant lot in Liberty that my understanding was it was not buildable. I held the sale this morning, and we had a bid of $2,150 by Ms. Candy Langley. Ms. Langley owns the property that adjoins this parcel. So I am before you today because the way this process goes, you have to approve the high bid if you would like for the property to sell for that amount. And I would like to mention that that amount does cover the delinquent taxes and the fees for the previous sale, the previous tax foreclosure sale, and part of the advertising costs for this one. And we'll get it back on the books by January 1 in the hands of a taxpayer, so.
It was the highest and the only?
It was the highest, and she was the only attendee, so it is a credit to her that she bid enough to cover those costs.
Right, I mean, just a small piece of property, wasn't it?
It is, it is. It's a small lot. It adjoins a lot that she owns that I believe is also unbuildable. It's gonna help her quite a bit.
It was $2,150.
Yes.
What was her name?
Candy Langley.
You a paralegal?
She is. She works for Ivy and Eggleston.
Yeah. All right. Any questions of Amy? Do I have a motion to accept the bid?
Mr. Chairman, oh, that's my fault. I move that we adopt the resolution accepting high bid for the property located in Liberty.
All right. Is there a second to motion?
Second.
Any other discussion or questions? Those in favor will say aye. Aye. Opposed, no. And sold.
All right, thank you.
Thank you. Yeah. Sold America. All right, courthouse renovations. Paxton?
K9.
Oh, I'm sorry. Wait a minute.
K9.
K9, I'm sorry.
You got Paxton excited there.
Paxton thought he was gonna get a dog. It's item G.
What's the wrong one while ago? Yes. G. Yes, sir.
Good evening, how are y'all?
Great.
I'm Sergeant Hogan with the Sheriff's Office. I'm in charge of, been tasked with and being in charge with the canines that you have so graciously afforded us to have to help the citizens of the county. I'm here today to request the expenditure of $5,000 in law enforcement restricted funds. The funds are needed to purchase a replacement canine for the Sheriff's Office. We purchased a dual-purpose canine in November 2019. His name was Al. He showed incredible potential as both an apprehension and detection dog. However, he became more aggressive and more so hyper-aggressive. Al was therefore, he was placed with two different handlers, both of which experienced the same issues. He was therefore returned to High Point Canine Solutions, where we purchased him for retraining and placement with a different agency. High Point Canine Solutions has credited the office with $2,000 towards another canine, and our department has therefore chosen to replace Al with a single-purpose canine, and they have agreed, the vendor has agreed for a $5,000 cost in that canine. They typically run $7,000, but with that deduction, we're looking at $5,000 to replace. So if any questions at all regarding that?
How much did we pay for Al initially?
Al was a $10,000 purchase.
He just didn't fit in? I mean,
Well, he just became hyper aggressive. We have apprehension dogs that we use for aggression purposes. However, it was tough for him to, as a dog, determine when and when not to be aggressive. So in the interest of the county and the sheriff's office and protection from liability, we chose to have him removed from the fleet.
So I guess when everything's said and done, we'll be paying $15,000 for this next dog. Is that right? If we paid 10 originally, we're paying 5 more. Is that correct?
Yes, sir.
Are they not willing to come and help us a little more on the $2,000 when we've got a $10,000 dog? That doesn't seem like a lot. I'm
sure
asking that rhetorically. I'm not.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
It's my experience with dogs that I have at the sheriff's office. I've been a handler for 5 years, and with patrol dogs, I've been almost 2 years. Much like everyone that has ever had a pet of any type, they're an animalistic opportunist. So if we can parallel this with just a human being, animals progress just like humans do. We all go through an adolescence phase that sometimes is very unpredictable. And so canines are in the same realm. However, they're just even more of an opportunist animal than we are. So all our dogs are vetted fairly strongly through High Point Canine Solutions, and in hopes that they will become, like the rest of our fleet, working canines that benefit the citizens, both liability and productivity. However, Al did not fit that, and we felt like we needed to cut ties in order to prevent future liability. And so I agree with your calculations of $15,000. However, if we were to get into a situation of liability and litigation, it might be more than that.
Do you think it's because he's a dual-purpose dog? Would that have anything to do with it, or?
It's partly that. However, it's just simply us being able to take an educated guess or an experienced guess on each dog working. We have several dual-purpose dogs at the office that are totally different than Al, and we've made those correct, educated, and experienced guesses correctly to date. However, just as we hope everything works out to the letter, sometimes it does not. So,
But we don't really have a warranty as such.
correct. In the dog world of knowing when we purchase a dog for $10,000 or $20,000, we are taking on the inherent risk that this will happen in the future. And I know this is a growing pain because we are our office is growing quickly in this field of canines. So this is something that we hoped would never happen. However, it's in the best interest of the county and the sheriff's office, and in the reputation of the Randolph County itself, that we just take him back to High Point and have him rehoused.
Will this would meet the requirements for use of the restricted funds, the drug money?
We got well enough to cover it.
Yeah. All right, further questions, discussion? We have a motion?
Yeah, so moved.
I'll second it.
Yeah. Motion and second to allow the use of $5,000 in law enforcement restricted funds, AKA drug money, for the purchase of a new canine dog. That is redundant, isn't it?
Canine dog.
New canine dog.
Yes, a new canine.
Getting later, so.
All right. Any other discussion or questions? Those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those no. You got it.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Thank you. Now, Paxton.
Good evening, Chairman, Commissioners. Tonight I'm here to make a request dealing with the courthouse renovation project. A little less than a year ago, you authorized the continued design of the project, and we're finally at the point where we're ready to put the project out for bid. And so tonight we have Jennifer Turner and Joy Troyer. They are designers with CPL Architecture, and Jennifer's going to give a quick overview of the project and present a cost estimate and a schedule. And then after the presentation, we'd like to ask that you authorize us to put the project out for bid with the intention of coming back in February. And with that, I'll turn it over to Jennifer.
Good evening. Tonight, we're going to go through the demolition, the renovation, the phasing, and structural finishes budget, and I'll try to move very quickly. If you need hard copies, I sent it to Paxton. He can get you some hard copies. Great, perfect. So we can go to the next slide. Oh, wait, I have it. Okay, I didn't know that. So our second floor demolition, we're still the same project area. We have broken it out into 5 phases, and it was 3 phases. We found that interim life safety would be better in 5 phases, as well as a construction entrance throughout the project. So same scope, just in 5 phases. The 5th phase, as we will see, is to remove and replace finishes only in the lobby. And so this is a renovation, and it's hard to see on the screen and in your packet, but if you need larger plans, we can send those as well. This is the overall phasing plan. You see phase 1 which is currently unoccupied in the space. That phase will happen first, and then the other phase, that will kind of be the starting block, and everything else will move in that phase, freeing up the other areas to kind of fall in line like dominoes. Phase 2 is the orange area, and then phase 3 is the blue. Phase 4, that's our contractor staging area where we have an entrance into the space, and that's in green. And phase 5 is a small finish replacement area in the lobby. This goes into greater detail of phase 1 that's currently unoccupied, and I believe that was that the police? Probation, probation and parole office that was removed from that area. A larger snapshot of phase 2. And then phase 3 in blue. This captures some of the states area on phase 3. We've also added a new countertop and glass partition to serve the states group, so they do not have to bring people into their offices. They can meet in an enclosed counter, which helps prevent against COVID transmission. So that was a change that we had made since the plans that were presented before. And then phase 4, which is the contractor staging area, that could be, that and phase 5 could go on at the same time. We just broke them out. Phase 5 could happen nights and weekends. We added high-density filing to the space, and since the courthouse, the south area is on grade, we do not have an issue with the structural of the existing courthouse. The north area, that we have to do some structural reinforcement because a high-density filing is a lot larger, and we have more high-density files than we added before. Our finish palette, Joy had met with the user group, and we put together finishes for the new space, removing the majority of the walls, so we need to go in with new flooring, new carpet, paint, and some demountable partitions, which are called out in the estimate. The original budget was a total of $1.9 million. That included furniture, fixtures, and equipment, and also some high-density filing. As you'll see on a revised budget, our high-density filing came in higher. We added more security upgrades and cameras throughout the space, and also structural additions with the carbon fiber reinforcement. We were able to obtain 2 rough order of magnitude estimates from Samet Corporation, a local contractor that is pretty big in the area, and their rough order of magnitude, they added a large contingency, and the total was just under $3 million. Frank Bloom, another large contractor, thought that the project could fall at 1.8 is the highest, and then we ran our own numbers, and these are hard to see, I know. The final amount is around 2.5, and we still have a high contingency because there may be some unknowns within the project. So we feel that we are in the middle of both estimates and that the project could move forward with the 2.5 million. These, okay, we can go back.
Are you saying, is the Bloom the lowest bidder?
Well, they're not the official lowest bidder. This was not vetted by subcontractors.
Do what?
It's just an estimate.
It's just an estimate. Yep, opinion of probable cost.
You just had somebody come in and
Yes.
do a quick We call it
Correct.
budgetary estimate.
So
Yes.
it's a range of the 1.6 to 1.8?
Yes. Yeah, I gave them a few weeks to put together numbers vetted from other projects. And I don't think their number included the high-density filing, so we would have to add that, which is another 386,000. And it's non-electrified high-density filing. We went with the less expensive route.
So you're kind of looking at somewhere in the 2.4.
Yes.
And we
I
had,
think that would be safe.
we had budgeted 1.9,
It's
2
about
million.
2.2.
Yep.
And these are just estimates, so it may be different depending on.
Correct.
That gives us an idea of what we can expect.
Absolutely. We understand that it's been a year since that estimate, and so pricing has gone up. We've even seen that on our own projects.
So when do we need to make a decision?
Well, tonight, it's just a matter of authorizing us to go out to bid. Then we can come back in January and show you what the actual bids are, and then you can decide if
Okay.
you want to,
And
proceed
we'll,
with it.
I don't know, you were saying we could pay as we go. We could add this to the school construction if we wanted to, but we don't have to make that decision tonight either. Is that right? And we do have the resources to pay as we go. Okay. So,
And this project is part of the capital that we talked about, that we're looking at expenditures during the budget year. Correct.
It's
Just for everybody.
when we did that in the cars.
the surplus that we had in the,
Yeah. We had that, set up that when we did the vehicles. To the courthouse renovation. All right. Any questions?
I have a question. Paxton, has anybody talked with the energy company about anything, if there are things that we could do during this remodeling, this renovation that would save us money in the future? Has anybody brought them in on this?
No, I was actually contacted by the Duke Energy back in the springtime, and we were actually going to meet them up there. Me and Robert with maintenance was going to meet them up there and just do a walkthrough to see if there was some energy upgrades we could do in the existing building. And then COVID came along and it got canceled, and it just hasn't gotten back on track yet. But as far as this project, we're designing up to date, LED, energy efficient. Doing all that we can, but we haven't brought in the Duke Energy for that.
We just need to be cognizant of that. I had a meeting with Duke Energy officials, and that was something that they talked about, how much could be saved, and gave some different examples if you can, work with them on the front end. And so,
Yeah, recently I was introduced, I didn't even realize we had a contact for the county. I've always had to go through their 1-800 number anytime I needed something, and recently we got put in touch with Chris Williams, and he actually looked over our accounts and has already recommended and made several changes to our billings that's going to save us money.
excellent, good, thank you.
Well, it's good that we're getting back on this and we have the resources to do that, because I know the folks at the courthouse have been patient with us. We focused on North Side, North Gate. But I think it's good to get back to the courthouse where it's really needed. But we've got our departments moved to make room so we can do all these things. All right, any other questions?
The last item is the schedule, if you want me to walk through that really quickly. Okay, we anticipate starting or submitting the project to bid on January 18th or somewhere in that time frame, and then the construction taking around 11 months to complete after it goes to bid, including contracts and phasing.
Okay.
know it's a little early to talk, but I guess there would be some disruptions of, they're gonna have to move back and forth, and I guess we can talk about that, I guess, a little bit later on.
Yeah.
How much problem that's gonna be and what that's gonna entail.
That's the purpose for the phasing.
Yeah.
is To move all those people around.
Have we, we had some meetings early on with this, with a group from the courthouse. Do we need to reconvene that little group, or are they familiar with this? What contact or sharing of information have you had with the district?
No, our last
attorney,
contact
judge?
with that group, a lot of them really determined that they did not need or want to move. At one point, we were moving just about everybody around the courthouse, and it was going to cost a lot more. And then finally, we gave the lower level of the admin building to juvenile justice for them to expand into, and then Pam really is the main person who has the space needs issue.
Right.
And
Because all this, I guess, most of it's clerk of court.
yeah, it's all clerk of court on the
So we
second
don't
floor.
really have it's not involved in courtrooms or anything else.
No.
DA's office?
No, it's just only clerk of court, her department.
Okay. That's due to records a whole lot.
Yeah, that's part of the problem with this, is that some of her records she has to maintain forever. I mean, as long as the people are living, she has to continue to maintain them, and they keep talking with the state like they're going to change and maybe go digital, but until they do, she's continuing. She's got stuff stored throughout the building in wherever she can, and she really wants to get it back into her space, and so this will allow that.
Okay. Any other questions? Thank you all very much. Thanks for your patience tonight. Item is date for our,
Well, let's see, we need to approve or deny to authorize it to be put out to bid. Yeah, as a H, I'll make the motion that we approve the final design of courthouse renovation, authorize it to be put out to bid.
all right. There's a second? Those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those no? Okay.
Can I just, real quickly, it's kind of an interesting point that got brought up there kind of at the last second. I apologize for not thinking of that. The whole world's going more and more digital. And if at some point, I guess, who's over this AOC or whoever, or Administrative Office of the Courts, or is that correct? Is over the Clerk of Superior Court's office, is that right? If they do go digital, boy, we got a lot invested in filing cabinets.
Well,
Some of that.
But I mean,
you gotta-
we need
you gotta-
space,
you gotta
some of
have
that
it.
is,
You have to go digital if they
Yeah.
digitize it, you gotta go through all of them.
and some of it's hard evidence that can't be digitized.
Just interesting. I didn't really think about that until that. Pardon? Okay, all right.
Yeah.
I just never thought about that. Yeah. Anyway, thanks. But thank you for your support and time.
We did that in Register of Deeds office about 35 years ago, and it cost Bob Crumley his job.
That's right. It goes back.
All right.
Well, it's time for us to set our date for the annual planning retreat
February the 25th.
at 1 o'clock.
What day is that?
That's on a Tuesday at 1 o'clock, and we'd meet we'll retreat to the Randolph County Office Building, the big room downstairs at 1 o'clock. And we normally do lunch, but this year, because of COVID, we're not going to do that. So just
Eat before you
eat
come.
before you come, and we can start at 1 o'clock.
You gonna cut lunch out?
I know, it's just
bring
that
a
time.
sandwich?
It's tough times.
Bring a bologna sandwich.
And my only update, Mr. Chairman, is to remind the board that next Monday at 6 o'clock, we have an appeal, rezoning appeal. That's on the Tessa Downs subdivision on Jordan Valley Road. And I think if you haven't got all the materials yet, you'll get that soon.
I think I have mine.
I haven't seen it yet.
All right. So is there a motion to set February the 25th, I guess weather permitting, for our planning retreat? Have a motion?
So moved.
Have a second? Those in favor say aye.
Aye.
It's approved. Any commissioner updates?
I got a couple. I've had concerns the last month or two with our ability to communicate with the community. Our local newspaper is a little undergoing some transition, and I think it's important that we are able to get messages out to the community, to our residents, and it seems to be more and more tough to do that. Well, I mean, we haven't had, Chairman, I think you had an interview 3 months ago.
It's never been.
That never been published. And I think it's, we need to take a look at, I don't know what the right term is, a media coordinator. Certainly not a spokesman. The chairman is a spokesman for the board. But a public relations person that can go out and help the departments to get messages out there through social media, because that seems to be the way to go. We've got the website, but so much of the news and whatnot now is on social media, and that's how people obtain their news. Unfortunately, local media is having a hard time of it right now. I've gotten ads or requests from the News and Observer requesting contributions to their newspaper. Not just a subscription, but a contribution. So, I guess it may be working for them, but I really think it may be time to look at that, and maybe
maybe we put that on our retreat agenda.
that might be a good thing to
Okay,
do.
we can do that.
I also think it would be great, I mean, this is not just us, this is all our municipalities with things that they're doing. There's, they're facing the same thing, so.
And then
It's a great idea.
the other thing, next month I hope to have a resolution for the board. No money expended or anything, hopefully, but about the food resiliency, food systems that the state association is President's Initiative, and I'm hoping we can maybe adopt that in support of that initiative. And I'll work with you on getting that. There's a couple of model resolutions, a couple of counties have approved in support of that.
We have a 2-day state commissioners board meeting tomorrow and Wednesday to review all the legislative goals.
Good luck.
And I know that's going to be a major process. So they're all over the board. They're everywhere. But that will be Zoom. It won't be in person. I'm going to go to the
We've got you
boardroom
covered.
Go to the boardroom at your county office and on the big screen and participate. The other thing I want to say, don't have press here. Bob McDuffie is retiring from the Piedmont Triad Regional Water Authority Board. Bob was an original member and the best board member that water authority has ever had. And Bob he was a first appointment when I guess 30 years ago. He was president of Randolph Electric. And we've talked with Dale Lambeth at Piedmont, at Randolph Electric, because they're a public utility, the water authority is a public utility, and I have a resume that I will get to each one of you, but I'd like for us to have some special recognition for Bob next month, and probably have some of the water authority board members, or certainly Greg Flory, the director, and but you see Bob Maxon, I think you see him occasionally. He's done a great job for us and really looked after Randolph County.
Yes, he has.
He doesn't mince words, and he's not hesitant to bring it up. So I'll just make you all aware of that. Any other business to come before this board tonight? I have a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
We are adjourned. Thank you.